Good day and good evening, and welcome back to Relic Farm and Talk with me, Caetsu Chaiji, but you can just call me Kai. So, as usual, we are over on Ravana on Materia, so if you want to hang out, you're welcome to. Although I will be zipping around the place to do Relic-related stuff. We have more books. Last time, we finished all the books for Warrior, and I have since turned in the Alexandrite for it. So it's actually on the light step now. However, I feel like that's a little bit more intense, so we'll get there when we get there. But for now, I have like 6 more weapons, I think, that needs a list of books. So that's basically the game plan, is more books, and this time we're doing it on Monk. I actually prepared by doing the leave quests first, just to get that done. Partly because when I do them, I use the... I discovered recently that apparently your leave quest list, like the ones you're allowed or offered, appear to not refresh unless you do a live quest. I could have sworn that they refreshed by other means. So while I was trying to fill up, I have like 5 books worth or so. I wanted to make sure I had that so I don't have to do it during a stream. Alice says, at the current rate, how long do you think until you're done? I think we have the rest of the year at least, unless I suddenly find some strategy to go faster, because we don't do that many books at a time. We'll see what happens. Now, with that said, hey Kaj, hey Retro Gaming, hey Taldemar, hey Selly, hey Alfie, hey Dan, hey Gersel, hey Tina-Lee, hey Lana, hey Fila, hey Elia, hey Volter, hey Alice, hey Mistleplier! Hello everybody, my name is Mistleplier. Hey Agent Monica, hey Kopamana, hey Nox, hey Procrastinaut, hey Vince, hey Brett, and hey Falsgeek. Hope you're all doing very well. Sally says, I've been rewatching the Mentorlet series lately. I honestly never noticed, just how many times you got gosh dang Ramu Extreme until now. Right? There is a reason why when I get, at this, in the earlier parts, when I got Ramu Extreme, I was like, oh no, this is heavy stuff. Let's see if we can do it. Now I'm just like, I sure hope the tanks know how to tank switch. We hit that point where it's just indifference. That is actually, I was asked, just before the stream, what I was gonna do when the Mentor Roulette series, when I get the achievement, and I said, I don't know, because from my perspective, we've kind of reached a point where a lot of duties, every time I get a duty, I'm like, have I gotten this one before? I could give a hint, give a tip or two for this boss. But I've probably already mentioned it 3 times. Maybe people have come to the series and haven't seen it before. I'll mention it again. Maybe I'll explain it better this time. Whatever. Even jokes that have been repeated. I ran out of names for guild tests completely. I've just... Some of them almost have fixed weird names because I don't know what to call them. I've ran out of ideas. And that's because we're on episode 108 or something like that. So when it's finished, I might just, have a pause on that, and then we have Evercold, and then we get back to it. I'm not sure. We might also just continue. I'm not sure. At least you're almost done. Ah, yeah, almost done. I would say that there's at least 20 more episodes. Retro Gaming says, a friend wanted to do a Remo Extreme with me, and I said nope. Not without researching of the fight. That is a good call, and that should be fine. Remember, I have a guide that goes over every A Realm Reborn Extreme, 2 minutes per boss. So you could open that one, just watch all of it, or just skip to the remove bit. It's not that bad. And Progressnaut says, for real, I've had your mentor playlist on as background noise while working from home lately, and I swear to God, the remove music is burned into my brain. How about doing the mentor roulette stream with Small Kai afterwards? Small Kai doesn't have even remote, like, has too many things that she needs to unlock. Dan says, how many streams do you have that you still need to cut down into videos? Like 4? And basically, if you actually go and check the live section on the channel, note that whenever I put up the video that is like matching a stream, that stream suddenly is numbered. When it doesn't have a video attached to it, it's not numbered. So you can count how many of them are not numbered. That's how far ahead I am. A little trick there. Hey, Naomi. And I do believe it is silly. I believe Buckman is the most common duty, but Rameau is probably the most common extreme. If we average each mentor roulette video to be roughly 18 minutes, it's still 6 hours worth of mentor roulette videos left to go. Yeah, and then you consider that each stream is like 3+ hours. That's quite a lot. Anyway. Hey, Juggernaut. Hope you're doing well. Retro Gaming says, I know, but he wants to go in blind, and I wouldn't do it blind. Good. See, the thing is, if he wanted to go in blind, then what you should tell him is, like, you could say, I don't want to do it blind, but another option you could say is you don't go in blind without 7 other people that all signed up to go in blind. Because if you just queue for it, you're going to get 7 people that are not blind that will spoil it for you. So you either, like, watch the guide and are not blind, or you find a team that are going in blind, right? Hey, Amara. Hope you're doing well. Thank you. Actually, let's start on that. Let's see, Kurthus. Actually, is there one? No, let's just start with Kurthus then. Kurthus, 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 Kurthus. Bellyful. It says from extreme is probably the most common by time, right? Due to being somewhat common and regularly taking multiple tries. Also that. It's probably one of the duties, if not the duty, that has taken up the most time. The King's Justice. Well, it's not a good start, is it? Well, I'm going to guess that quartz coupling is somewhere down there. So we fly down there, and then we do a dungeon, and then we check again. Red says, it'd be interesting to see how many duties have a higher percentage time than Buckman. To be fair, Buckman usually takes like 10 seconds, right? Thank you, Ilya. Dan says, do we get many non-RM-born extremes in roulette? No. Absolutely not. It's actually really weird that we've gotten, like... Between me and the chat, I think we've gotten, like, 3 or 4 Thornton extremes within a couple weeks. It's really strange. Oh, right, it's that way around. In the cave. Oh, so Gazel said kettle time. Actually, I already have the kettle. That one just requires that you have an A Realm Reborn relic finished. Ow. No. Oh boy. You know, I might have to take it back to EU with this. Oh boy. The lag is immense. Hey Gigapoggers, hope you're doing well. Hey Sure Sugar, hope you're doing well as well. That sounds dreadful, Gigapoggers. I specifically want to finish the A Realm Reborn relics so that I can, like, complete all of that and the Heavensward relics and just be done with that. Because once you hand them in, it means that the game treats it as if you always have them. As far as being able to buy replicas is concerned. And that's what I want. Don't really want to lug all those around. Give it a few more expansions and then we'll start to see people that actually have trouble having their relics because their retainers are full. Does even the non-extreme version of Heavensward Trials feel pretty rare in roulette? I got Ravana the other day and was like, whoa, this guy! Yeah. It's actually really funny. I started editing on a specific Men's Roulette episode today. And in that one, there is both where are the other fates? They are the King's Justice in Western Lanosea and Quartz Coupling in Eastern Thanalan. There was both a Bismarck Extreme and a Bismarck Hard, and hilariously, the one we wiped on is not the one you'd think. Wow. He's a reader. Now he's dead. Dan says, how? Did you know that the Serpent phase has a is a DPS check? That trigger for tower, I see. Wait, what do you mean? Yes. That's the one for the one at the tower. I do not know, Gassel. And you don't have to spy for me. I'm trying to check relaxed checking on my own, but I mean, it is appreciated, but I don't actually know where it is. And what the heck is going on with Western Lanosha? Wow! Everything burns. Calm down, game. I think you have done enough. Oh boy. One fateful day in Aleport. Yep. I believe one thing you can probably be certain of is that most relic quests are like Level 40 plus. Oops. Aerodel and Goldo, hope you're doing well. And Womba, hope you're doing well as well. And see, that's the trick, Goldo. We're just chilling with this. Just having a chill old time. That is, it's exactly meant to not be super exciting. Because then we can just talk about other stuff. Isn't that amazing? Then you can just chill and talk with me. And then if that gets really boring, then we have something silly to laugh at together. Such as dumping into Aleport and then just finding that the whole zone is dying. Do the return of the elf. Do. I think I've heard that zones have a limit to how many fates can be there, but I feel like that Aleport situation kind of demonstrated that, nah, there are just some fates that are, like, mutually exclusive. If you have all of the fates that can exist, then some of them have a follow-up, I guess. No, right, these are called Zarak. We need a Malja. Bro, really? I thought I was a genius here, just killing all 3 enemies at once so nothing could approach me. And then the tortoise is just like, you know what? I could take him. Is that a Lancer? It is a Lancer. Why is your body so far away? I wish I could punch both of you at once. Whatever. Done. Dun 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 dun. I believe it, Mistel. It's actually, in Dawntrail, it is so likely that that happens that it's kind of become a problem that nowadays players are too powerful to actually farm the material to buy the mount. So if you do Rathalos Extreme unsynced, you're kind of relying on the random chance. Whereas if you do it synced or really carefully, then you might actually be able to farm. But I don't actually know how possible it even is. When I did the farm, I did it with 2 friends. And it was also unsynced in Endwalker. Goldos. I wish you could buy relic skips. I feel like that kind of defeats the point. Once the relics are no longer current, it's just there for the time investment and the potential achievement. And you can't buy achievements in the game. And when it's current, I mean, they don't sell you skips for current content. Oh, fuck fins. Are there any purchasable weapon skins? Not relic ones. There are purchasable like glam weapons, yes. Not a lot, but they exist. But notably, those skins are exclusive to the shop as well. So it's not like you're buying a visual that you could have acquired through time investment instead. Hey, bot puppies! Hey, Marisong! Hope you're doing well. Geopoker says, now that I remember, I had the worst time doing the AR relic with Monk. Not having a ranged attack was bad. It's not as bad now that you can just fly at things, I think. But I do get what you mean. Forever be angry. Lightning's gunblade is a paladin sword, not for Gunbreaker. Isn't there like some? Isn't there? Is that FF8's gunblade that is from the collector's edition? Hey Pixel, hope you're doing well. Which relic is this? This is the A Realm Reborn relic from Monk. What name? What is it named? I don't know. I'm getting it. The one I have is called Shrairai Atma. But it'll be named something else like halfway through. Thank you, Gazel. I don't necessarily need those relics, I just think it's fun to collect them, and it's something we can do. Something we can relax with together. Not the White Mage and Paladin ones, so much Yeah, the Realm Reborn ones are particularly grueling. If you've seen Pixel, a while back, I did like a speed run of an Realm Reborn relic. I also did one with Heavensward with a Heavensward relic. In both cases... Hey Shaq, hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. For the A Realm Reborn speedrun, it took like now 9 hours because thank you, Bookstep, which is what we're doing today. And I had specifically farmed most of the materials you can farm off like separately, so there was a lot that could be skipped. But the Bookstep isn't that. Oh, nice. And what was I saying? Right. The Heavensward weapons, in a similar fashion, you can collect so many things that in the time of like roughly the amount of time that a normal stream for me takes, I could finish 2 relic weapons. And it wasn't even an issue. We just smashed it out. Meanwhile, an A Realm Reborn relic takes so long that, I mean, it took all day. Jack says, thought you would have done the light step on Warrior this week. I preferred to just get the book step done completely. I think that's also a fun way to do it in a way. Hey Sims, hope you're doing well. Will Reaper be in free trial when the new expansion gets released? No, that's not how this works. In fact, I believe Shadowbringers got added to the free trial quite recently, Sims. Sometime in Evercold, they'll probably add Endwalker to the free trial, but I would say you probably will have to wait at least to sometime in 2029, I think. Is my guess. Because Evercode's coming in 2027. Sally says, I'm kind of curious if you'll do Eureka after you finish the AR and assumedly Heavensward relics. I don't know if I will, but there's also the very likely possibility that we will simply not finish this. anytime soon. I guess as we continue to do walk, like the walk and talks like this, we just might eventually. But the thing that usually deters me from doing Eureka stuff is that the steps require a lot. Like, it requires you to be a lot more involved. Hey, Rillian. Hope you're doing well. The memes? What? Do you think they'll ever stop adding expansions to the free trial? I think Endwalker will be a good stopping point, but I don't know. Based on the way that they've been doing things, I would be shocked if they stopped adding things. I think what's more likely is that at some point they will decide to squish stuff together. So by, like, a side effect would be that the existing expansions cover less ground because it's squished in a little bit. Imagine if Evolved Mode requires Evercold and thus isn't on the free trial. Wow, that would be mean. And I think extremely counterproductive. Any guesses for 9.0 jobs? Assuming they're healer and magic DPS. Hey, Floral Buns. Hope you're doing well. And Cat. I don't know. I feel like a huge thing... Oops, I completely flew over half stone there. A huge thing is that I wouldn't almost need to see how they're like doing healers in Evercold to have a solid idea of where we might take it. For magic DPS, I mean, with Evercold opening up more like distinctness, the distinctness between the mages have would mean, rather between the jobs, would mean that you could easily fit a dot mage in again. Squeenix, what's happening? When do we get one? Hey, Cody guy, hope you're doing well. Considering the consistency that they've kind of figured out with the timing of expanding the free trial, I don't think it has anything to do with that. And what it sounds like is you being a little bit of a cynic. Obviously, the only possible reason they would time him like that is because their sales are sliding at that point. If they did that, then we'd have gotten an extra free trial expansion in like 7.1. Whenever they're doing something great for us, it's because it's going bad for them. It's the only possible answer. Mara says, Kai screaming, crying, and shaking when they introduce a warlock magic DPS and it's not a dot job. Have you seen my history on the summoner video on the channel? Its title is basically something along the lines of Final Fantasy XIV had a warlock? Like, it's actually pretty funny how insane, like how insanely heavily it mirrors that can I copy your homework meme. Cat says, wait, businesses make decisions based on making money? Right? At a warlock? Yep. Remember like this here, Sugar. In A Realm Reborn, I basically go over this in the video as well. In A Realm Reborn, you started as a summoner, or well, as an arcanist, right? But you started, and the first pet you got was a ranged magic attacker. You get a dot with a cast time. Oh, sorry, an instant dot. A little bit like Corruption from World of Warcraft. Then you get a dot that that has a cast time, a little bit like Emulate. Then you get a debuff that makes the enemy do less damage for a bit, focusing a little bit on physical. A little bit like Curse of Weakness. And then you get a third dot that is also instant, a little bit like Curse of Agony. And then your second pet is a tank. By the way, the first pet is a little bit like an imp. And the second pet is a little bit like a Void Walker. And the third pet is melee DPS, a little bit like a Succubus or a Fell Hunter. In fact, nowadays, you technically still... You technically get them in a different order, but in a way, the pet you get at level 30 is an upgrade to the melee pet. A little bit like getting a melee pet again. Oh, I completely missed out 2 things in Western Lenasia. That's annoying. Yeah, true. Of course the company is going to do things based on money, but based on 14, based on just how 14 does things, I'm willing to suggest that it is more likely that they release the trials, like expand the free trial at specific points, because that's just a habit they've gotten. Like now that it has been 6.5 and 7.5, it's probably going to be 8.5 and 9.5 and 10.5 until they eventually stop doing it. Hey Seraph, hope you're doing well. And Bronson, hope you're doing well as well. Any ideas what the next relic grind step will be? It's dropping next Tuesday. I don't know. Could be anything, right? I'm expecting that it'll be... I'm expecting that it'll be taking a little bit. Thank you, Ilya. I'm just gonna mention that sometimes a blue mage can hit so hard that it can be difficult for other jobs to actually get any progress. Hey Mary Mary, hope you're doing well. It is pretty funny. Back when Stormblood was finally added to the free trial, what happened, as I recall, is that people were immediately faced with the fact that, oh, ultimates are, as far as I know, not available for free trials. Hey, Yantus, hope you're doing well. I'm glad to hear that. Huh? That's a weird kind of line of sight. Next running step will be more books. Well, I guess I'm warmed up then. But the free trial stuff, does it only include the 0.0 content or all the MSQ post-patch stuff too? As far as I know, it includes all of it. It's just that the devs of course pick and choose certain things. For instance, they would very much like it if you paid money to do ultimates, because ultimates are like, you know, some of the like prime special content of Final Fantasy XIV. They wouldn't want you to just get that for free, I guess. Any greater? So typically assume that yes, the content is available. It's just that there are sometimes exceptions. Exactly, Neograiner. Meridian. But Dan, I think what they meant was, does that mean that when Shadowbringers is on the free trial, you get from 2.0 to 5.0? Like, all the post patches, but only the start of Shadowbringers. That's not how it works. You get the whole of Shadowbringers. It's a lot more money whenever they update the gold source items. I mean, I think they added new stuff to Gold Saucer recently. I say I think because I don't actually know what they added. Did they add the new multiplayer content? I don't think that came yet, no. Because I don't even know what it is. Ingrainer says I'd kill for more mounts. Really? Meanwhile, I'm here like... I actually kind of put it in a somewhat recent video about rewards from content. When the new variant dungeon and all that came out, and people were confused. Because the big reward for finding all the endings wasn't a mount, and I'm here like... If it was a mount, then I would just have put it in my stash and never used it. Now, I got face wear, and it was a weird face wear that I'm probably never going to use anyway, but it at least is more likely that I will use it than a mount. Like, I basically hit the break point where I'm like, I'm collecting mounts because I can. No other reason. As if mobile hairstyles and mounts and minions, etc. could be gold source items. Are you sure that Squeenix has the rights for that? Just because it was in a Final Fantasy 14 package doesn't mean that they actually have the rights to that. So just because you saw it with 14 label on it doesn't mean they can actually give it. Is variant dungeons worth doing? Unlocked them like a week ago. Depends on what you mean by worth doing. It's interesting content. It's fun to explore. Does it give you any power? No. No relevant item level increasing rewards. It does not make you stronger. Like, I spent like an evening. Was it an afternoon? I spent hours in there figuring out every ending with some friends. Jack says, would the mobile engine even be compatible with the main game engine? If he had the rights to the store stuff the mobile version put out. I mean, I have a feeling that that's unrelated because it's, you know, just a model, right? Dan says, what duty will you do for light farming? I did so much Totrak for mine. Never a dungeon. I would either do, and this depends on like the shape of the damage of the job I'm doing it with, and whether I have help or not. If I have help, and the help is powerful enough, I would just do Ifrit. Because he's the fastest. But if you can't hit him right and kill him immediately, then he is a lot slower than other options. If we're a bit slower, I would do King Moggelmog. He's a little slower, but he's a lot more consistent. If you're a little slower. If we're a lot slower, then based on what I've heard, the best you can do is actually Bahamut. Yes, the last coil. I haven't tried it, but I have heard that that's the best you can do with something like Scholar. Hey Jeff, hope you're doing well. Right, if you're doing it at an appropriately leveled job, then doing extremes might be pretty tough. I'll say, cool, bad guy. Hope you're doing well. I think the DPS might not be doable for tanks and healers. I've specifically heard that the reason why, Bahamut got any prominence is because Scholar can do it. You just have to time your damage correctly. Because Scholar has the damage to kill Bahamut in a time window where he's basically doing something. Florbond says, I think at max level with decent item level, you should be able to use a free extreme on any job. Nope. The thing is, Floral Buns, you have to basically one-shot him. Just like, boom. You have like, okay, not one-shot, like 2 or 3 hits. And some jobs don't have that kind of firepower. I specifically had to figure out a specific sequence of attacks on Ninja. And now you might be saying, but you're max level, how do you not one-shot? It's because you're handicapped. You're wielding this. You're doing like a quarter or less damage. Or like you're doing like a quarter or less damage than you normally would. You're like super weak noodle arms while doing this. But if you had a friend along, they would be able to one-shot it, no problem, consistently. Trying to remember what I did for my White Mage and Scholar Realm Revolving Relics. Depending on when you did it, White Mage has Afflatus Misery. Exactly, Dan. Precisely. The reason why something like Thornmarsh might be bad for that is that the way you do that quickly is by smacking the king so hard that he only gets to rest his sword once. And then he dies from the second one. Or at best, he dies when he revives him the first time. And the reason why I'm basically just not doing something like Aurum Vale is because spamming a trial, you can do it to your heart's content. If you spam a dungeon, you're spending your daily duty limit. So that would only work if I know that I'm not doing, like, I don't need all 100 duties. It was a crucial detail when that didn't one-shot? A crucial detail when I was doing the speedrun. Afflatus needs to be crit direct hit to one-shot Ifrit. Oh boy. In that case, Thornmarsh is probably better. My god, it's a jerk anglerfish. Take this. Kamehameha Blast. Hey, Jace. Jace says, I think what I would try is cast Dia, then when he freed cast his cone attack, I'd use Flatus Mystery and S-Eyes. Ah, the trick there is then you have probably already wasted too long and it would have been better to just go Thornmarsh. Like, that's kind of the problem here is, and that's also something with Bahamut, is that if you could beat Thornmarsh in... He cast a cone attack like 4 seconds in. Oh, okay, fair enough. Maybe then it would work, yeah. With King Mogglemog, I believe when I was unlucky and didn't like get him the first round, like at worst, I would usually get him in 15 seconds or so. So you don't actually have very long to fiddle with it. So the only jobs where Bahamut's 30-second kills are really worth it is when it's real bad. Deadman, are you asking if trials don't count for the duty limit? Bruh, I forgot the key. This does not spark joy. I'm Tiny Key! It's Tiny Key! But yeah, I think we talked about this last time as well. There is a 100 dungeon limit. Like a 100 daily dungeon limit. But that only applies for dungeons. And that might sound really weird, but the reason is that supposedly that bots use specific dungeons to farm money, something like that. So I've been told. And they wanted to put like a stop to that, or at least a dampener on it. And they apparently don't use trials for that. And as a result, trials don't have a limit. Normal raids don't have a limit. It's only dungeons. But what's really weird is if you hit the limit, they will block you from doing anything. Even things that are not dungeons. The funny thing there, Jace, is we've basically, since we saw the first step of the Dawntrail relics, basically be like, oh, you remember Atma? Been like waiting for the moment they'll drop Bookstep on us. I believe when we last talked about this, we also specifically covered the little detail that the amount of effort it takes to legitimately do 100 dungeons is insane. Like, you're not going to like come to that sleeping. Like, that's not gonna come just out of nowhere. You will have to actually really work for that. And the only way to like realistically spend all your 100 dungeons is by spamming something unsynced. Does completing dungeons give gil? Yes. Mob kills in dungeons give gil, champion. Name free live and champion and haunted mask. Ching. Ever noticed? If you don't have it turned off in the chat, when mob kills give you money, it straight up prints in the chat how much money they give you. Let me just double check that I got it right. Yep. Earth. Yeah, in that case, champion, you would miss that. That is why my chat log goes crazy. It's because I just have everything. Pizza donuts. That sounds nice. Yarm. Right, let's see. Taste of Fear and Kurthas. Schism in Outerland Sea. Big Bagoli theory in Eastern... I feel like that came up before. Is that the boss? That takes like 1,000,000 years to spawn? I feel like it is. Dang it. What's up? Yeah, exactly, the stupid Mirror Knight. Schism, 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 schism. Was I looking for Bagoli theory last time? It's quite something. Taste of Fear. Hey, Prince of Sloth. Hope you're doing well. What do they mirror anyway? Your punches. Right back in your face. I'm guessing that there is some sort of Japanese myth or something about that, because if I remember correctly, Corviknight, which is also like a metal-plated bird in Pokemon, has some sort of ability called Mirror Armor or something like that. So that there's some sort of context here, because Mirror Knights in 14 have wings too. You could poke them. How about I just kill them? Boom. Oh, one of them was it. Boom. What are the activities for A Realm Reborn relics again? A lot of things. What we're doing now is the book step. It's joining the Discord o'clock. Thank you, Ardil. See again, did it spawn while we were here? No, it did not. Then we go back through the list. Schism, schism, schism. Any schisms? No schisms. Yes, there's also rest in peace to Skarmory being replaced by Corviknight. Well, have you seen the big feat that Skarmory got with its Mega? Slot says, first time I'm watching a stream because I avoid streams with content I'm not seeing yet. I'm still in Shadowbringers. Fair enough. That is pretty reasonable. I'm just gonna park myself here real quick, just in case it spawns. And then we're gonna use the magical power of walking away, because I'll be right back. And I'm glad you enjoyed them, Sloth. In the meantime, Manatee restored. See if the magic works, guys. Well, there you go. I feel like I nailed it, right, guys? How quickly did it spawn? Like a minute after I left, the moment I left, oh boy. It's very effective. It's really funny. Yeah, that's how you do it, guys. We gotta train the Watcher better. He should have been hollering. That would be amazing, actually. Imagine, like a little sound toy, like a little sound thing in the plushie, so that like you can do like a one of the like channel points things to make it just do a thing. He's the Watcher, not the... That's a good point, Amara. That is a good point. He's in fact the Watcher, not the Hollerer. He's gonna watch it happen and just see if I'm stupid enough to let it happen. And he's got this. He's got that job on lock. Ooh, a parchment. Give me that. Ooh, a parchment. Give me that. Ooh, a frog. Die! And... Dang it. Die! Die! Move, mate! Oh, you need the parchment. The special Watcher pet I have is one I was gifted. I think it was Agent Monica that gave it to me. And that alone makes the new variant dungeon worth it. All according to Kai Kaku. Exactly. Excuse him, excuse him, excuse him. Ah! I'm pretty sure whatever quest it is, that it is something at the start of that is like a level 40 something thing. Sticking to the agenda? Exactly. Just don't forget to cry one of those where you have to escort a dude. Or a dog. Is that the one we have to escort a dog? No! Give me your things. Give me your lunch money. Give me your tears. Bam! It's a void jumper, and he's dead. Meow. Doink. And dang it. I had to check every single one. Mean. There you are. Oh boy, machinations. Back there, I guess. Back and forth, back and forth. So, I have mentioned this before, but for anyone that needs the tip, Amara says, if you want to get better value out of your Prime than that Fate, why not subscribe on Twitch? Wow, you guys got the catchphrases over here. That's really good. But on that note, it also helps a lot with a like over on the YouTube side. You know, algorithms and such. So thank you so much. I guess Schism isn't here either. Well, time to kill some things. Oh, there's something to kill. Death approaches. Oh, Vincent Gazel found it. Why do I hear boss music? Just a picture of a tiny pink lizard, and it just says, quickly approaching your location, distance. Then just reduces quickly. They ran for fun. Hope we will. Jay says, how many relics have you completed so far? 3? The Black Mage one, the Paladin one, and the Ninja one. And the Ninja one I did as a speed run. And now I'm just completing all of the ones that remain, like as a combined thing. We have the warrior weapon in the light step. Welcome to the game, Rent for fun. That sounds like a reason to not move from my current location. That's the spirit. I specifically collected Atma for everything, so I have every weapon that remains either on the book step or the light step. Oh, Schism popped as well. Fantastic. Run! With wings. Fly! Fly, you fools! Onward! Jay says it makes me wonder why we don't get as much sound effect variety with weapons anymore. Well, it kind of swings, doesn't it? Something kind of funny with that is how the Dawntrail weapons all make like train noises, and all of the NUO weapons from the most recent extreme make fart noises for some reason. The void is Cassie. Ding, ding, ding. What can be cooler than a void fart? You know, you make a great point. Doth the yawning rift not tempt you? Wow, no, actually, it doesn't. As a matter of fact. Thank you. Video says once someone in Solution 9 shouted that they hated the train weapon sound. You can imagine what happened next. Oh yeah, that's not something you mention. Gamers will simply go, oh really? You don't say. So if, for instance, I did this, ding, 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 you'd be very annoyed, right? Doth the farting rift not tempt you? No, I guess not. I didn't actually realize that the Realm Reborn relic for Paladin has unique sounds for the swings and the blocks. But I have noticed that like the sound of blocking is more distinct. Maybe that's why. What's your favorite weapon relic grind? None in particular. I feel like each of them has like upsides and downsides. I think the Realm Reborn one is probably the best designed overall. I just think that the book step is a little overwhelmingly long and big. But what I really like about the Realm Reborn relics is that unlike the relic steps of basically every other expansion, the Realm Reborn one actually includes everything in the game. They're like, well, we have this thing called Fates. Bring it in. We have Atmos and the book step. Done. You have to do it, like, there will be specific Fates, so you can't just do any old thing. You have to actually figure out that some Fates spawn in different ways. We have lave quests. Done. Book step. We have a lot of dungeons. Easy. We put those in 2 steps. We actually put them in like several steps because you can light farm, you have specific things in the book step, you have specific steps in the quest step. The book step could have been consolidated, be able to be ran simultaneously. It would probably be better. See, the funny thing is, part of the reason why I don't think it would work if you could do it all together is, did you notice that in the whole book step section, there are multiple sections that require the same dungeon, or the same fate, or the same live quest. So if you could just bring every book all at once, it would kind of not make sense. It would just be kind of silly. I mean, it's already silly. But we intensified the silliness. To be fair on that, Free Life, if I remember correctly, the storyline of the Realm of Born relics is basically that Gerald is tasked to make something of particular quality and make, and he's trying to figure out how to do it. And the whole point was to make that kettle to begin with. There's a lot of things in Realm of Born that feels like they stretched them out a bit. But that makes sense because, you know, they needed to give people time, like, stuff to do while they were making Heavensward. I think most people are nowadays, Floral Buns. Actually, the probability that you'll meet a player that did any A Realm of Born step when it was actually current is very low. At least, relative to just, asking any old player. There's a lot more players nowadays that never played in actual Realm of Born than there are players that did. And we can simply tell that by how few players there were back then. How many players there are now. Hey, it's Metricon! Hope you're doing well. The only step I did on content was the initial step with the trials. Oh boy. The thing that matters the most about them, about doing them when they were current, is that if I understood correctly, these numbers used to be 10. I believe there was also something about there being more lives and more fates or more dungeons or something like that per book. And the Atmos had a way lower drop chance of 2% and things like that. That used to be way worse. Jay says there's a YouTuber that said it used to be way worse. I mean, you don't need a YouTuber to say that. Yoshi P straight up brought it up somewhat recently. When people were whining that the Demi-Atmos were too rare in the Dawntrail Relic step, he was like, the Relic steps from A Realm of Born, like, those Atmos were 2%. We buffed them to, I believe, 20%. And the Atmos from Dawntrail are 5 and 20%, depending on what you do. We feel like, considering you only have to do the step once, ever, it shouldn't be too bad. Seems pretty reasonable. I understand that it's pretty annoying because it's drop chance, and I've said myself in my opinion, I would have preferred if they did something like just have them drop Atma fragments, and then when you have enough fragments, you have an Atma. So that instead of dealing with a 5% chance, you're dealing with like a range of thingies that drop, but you're at least seeing clear progress each time you do a thing. That's how, like, if I was a developer, that's how I would have done it. Because I do find it extremely demoralizing to do a whole bunch of stuff and then just nothing drops. And so by extension, I would assume that other players would feel that as well. The 14 players would not survive an 11 relic grind. I would agree, yeah. I mean, the modern WoW player would not survive a classic WoW grind. I don't know if the fragments would work. It helped engage with shared fates and Dawntrail. I mean, the trick, Jace, is that instead of going... you need to do, like, on average, you'll get 1 Atma every 20 fates, right? You just make it so that the average drop rate is that you get about enough fragments for 1 whole Atma every 20 fates. And then it just swings a bit. That way you don't have Lucky Steve over there that gets their Atmas just boom, 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 done, and then just moves on. And then you have Richard that has just given up because he's done 120 fates and he still hasn't seen one. Which is possible. Unlikely, but possible. There's that, Mary, but there's also the part that while that you can control what kind of demi-atmas you get by just doing the fates in the overworld. You just go to the particular zone where a specific demi-atma spawns. The problem was that the average drop rate when doing that required that you would do 20 fates per demi-atma drop on average. Now, you know how averages work with statistics and probability. It doesn't have a memory. So after you've done 19 fates, the 20th one has just as much of a chance to give you one as the 19th one. So you just might not get one. And yeah, exactly as Metricon says, in a game with as many players as 14, you are going to get someone who gets the bad luck. The counterpoint, the game owes me a good RNG roll. Does the game know this, Amara? Have you talked with the game about this? The bad news there, Jace, is that most of the critical engagements in Occult Crescent are just on a timer. You can't really control anything there. Some of them are spawned by action, but most of them are just on a rotating cycle. The Maruri. Any thoughts on moving relics away from the overworld dungeon grinds to field ops and then mixed? My opinion is that I think field operations are kind of not the best solution. I feel like the fact that we go through this huge overworld for each expansion, like covering at least 6 zones, and then it's just used for some like random fates and a quest here and there, And then we need to add a 7th zone as a special field operation. Why couldn't we just do something in the overworld zones? Like, why couldn't something just happen there? Hey Rams, hope you're doing well. Friends, as in every D&D table, there needs to be a person that rolls bad and looks amazing. You're welcome. Hey Gaijin Jami, hope you're doing well. And yeah, exactly. That is exactly what I mean. Why can't we just... How about we make the overworld zones work in some way, but that they can expand into, like, field operation style mechanics later, so that we don't have this, like, well, overworld zones are for fate farming and hunt trains. Like, just make the zones interesting in general. I think, Jace, the thing you mixed up is that in Boja and Eureka, most of the, at least a lot of the engagements and stuff that happens there are player activated. In Occult Crescent, it's just like this wheel, this hamster wheel of fate, engagement, fate, engagement, fate, fate, engagement, engagement, fate, engagement to keep you going. It's very crazy. And because it just pops up like there and there, here and there and everywhere, if you don't need like 2 out of the 6 zones, then the probability that something spawns where you need it is like gradually going to drop, and eventually it's smarter to just go out and do fates. Seraph says Joshua P said they want to make overworlds more engaging. Fantastic. At least they see it too. Haven't they said that for years already? I mean, they can say that for a decade and still mean it, Gazel. But that's a fair point. You know, that's also a very good point, Mary, that if you are in Occult Crescent, even if you have reached the point where, like, 2 out of the 6 zones have atmas you don't need, if it spawns somewhere with something you don't need, it's still better to engage with it and clear it so that the thing you do need can spawn. But again, when you start to reach that point, it starts to possibly be better investment of time to just do normal fates somewhere where you can control it, I think. I'm not sure where the exact, like, breakpoint is. There should be... There's some math here. Wait, who are you talking to, Rans? Me mostly. I didn't say that I specifically dislike the random drop rates. I said that I think that it can be very demoralizing that you may have to do 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 of a thing where the drop rate is such that on average you'd need 20. But because it's yes or no, you don't see any progress. Whereas if they just made it random, but you needed like a lot of them. So like for instance, if you needed, instead of 3 of each demi-atma, you needed 300 of each demi-atma. And then they multiplied the drop rate like accordingly. Then you would see progress, and you can make it a range so that when you do a fate, you get somewhere between 5 or 1 and 10 demi-atma fragments. You would see progress, but it would still be heavily RNG. I'm basically saying that it's really awesome when you just go and do 3 fates and done. You're like, wow, that was easy. But I feel like it's actually pretty funny. I feel like there's a lot of things in Final Fantasy XIV where the game specifically tries to avoid the really unlucky scenario and weighs that higher than the potential awesomeness of the really lucky scenario. But for some reason with things like Demi-Atma, they just go, nah, screw that. Where they would specifically avoid that by putting some sort of guarantee on progression in there. But I also understand that because it is a one-time objective, I can see why it kind of makes sense to go, yeah, it's gonna take you a while. Should they played around with it? I don't know. I will say they've never tried doing a fate. I don't believe they've tried a relic. Actually, scratch that. In a way, that's basically what they did with the paste step. You needed a huge amount of it, but everything you did progressed it. And when did the paste step appear? After the Demi-Atma step. But yeah, as I was just saying, the fact that it's a one-time thing per character makes me understand why they're doing it like this. And I also understand that they've decided to do it the way that they did. But I can still say that I would have done it differently. I think there's also something, like, there can be a lot of reasons why they did it the way that they did. Who knows, maybe the reason why they go out, like, guns blazing with the Atma step, of all things, could be that they went, well, in Endwalker they said that it was too easy. So, I guess they want us to go harder then. How's this? At the moment, the immediate response is players going, it's too hard. And it never fails, it's true. Like, they put a kind of heavy grind on a relic step, players go, no, make it easier. They take the grind away entirely and just go, I don't know, poetics. And the players go, now it's too easy. I guess there's something to be said that approaching it like that sounds almost like adversarial. Like, we're not enemies. We're all trying to just enjoy the game, right? And also, as Asymmetricon says, I would actually expand it. It's not. It's Final Fantasy XIV. Someone's going to explain. It's a game. Someone's going to complain. It's life. Someone is going to complain. You know. I think Cat has it, guys. Right on the money. I mean, it's 4 steps total, right? Isn't that less than every other relic? I haven't done too many of them, but I guess the Phantom quests are 3 steps bundled into 1. I believe that relic steps, at least from Shadowbringers, have been like sort of 4 steps. Was Shadowbringers 6 steps? Fair enough. Was there any steps where where 2 of them came in the same patch? It's been a bit. I did all of the Shadowbringers relics in Shadowbringers. How many people do you need before someone complaining is inevitable? I mean, I guess it depends on the topic. Cat says 1. You need 1 person and someone who's making the thing to say, what's your opinion? You can be blunt if you want. And then the person will probably go, well, I think it was great, but now that you're asking, there was this, Thank you, Gyarados. One person is complaining that he's alone. Ugh. Oof, that's a good one. You know, I know exactly what the picture is. It's like a harp, but for some reason I thought that she was like there, like holding like a gun. Like... Just, hello there. Hey Ham, hope you're doing well. Marl says, people on the internet will give you their opinion, even if you don't ask. Especially if you don't ask. There was actually something really funny. It's been a few weeks, but right when Season 3 of Fellowship, which is a game we've been playing a little bit on the channel, was landing, you can't imagine, like, if you play Fellowship at all, and you are not in the Fellowship Discord, take a look at it, and just every now and then check the discussion room. How frequently someone will come in with their 5 cents about how they should actually make the game, and they're obviously choosing to fail by not doing these things that they've clearly chosen to do. The sheer amount of people that will come in with a criticism, and whenever they're asked, like, you keep, like, criticizing the game, do you actually like it? Because every time you come in, you're complaining. They're like, oh, I like it. I want it to succeed. That's why I give this kind of feedback. And it's like, yeah, but that feedback they get every day. How about, better idea, to give them something positive? It's pretty funny. There was specifically a day where they did that. And like someone said that. And then the conversation actually, like, several people that were very vocal had nothing to say. But they said that the reason they were critical was because they wanted to help. And when they were then asked, could you say something positive to help? They didn't have anything. Turns out it's really easy sometimes to be a critic. and point out the flaws. How about you point out the good stuff for once? And I thought that was hilarious. Hey again, Shaq. Hope you're doing well, and thank you for the resub. How many Discord links does one need to join the community? It's like a drop. Assistant weapons, 485, patch 5.25 resistance and augmented, 5.35, 2-step 1, and 2 steps again. It does look like the resistance weapons like got a few extra steps by them like shoving multiple upgrades into the same patch. I thought it was really funny because it was so perfect of like so many people being like, no, but I am trying to help. And then when they were asked if they could try and do it differently, they didn't actually have anything. Especially not because they were kind of like they were kind of had with their pants down, if that makes sense. Because normally when you go into a conversation like that, you might go, oh, but if you, like, couldn't you say something positive about the game for a change? And they'll be like, well, the reason why I have so much criticism is because the game is bad. But if you start by saying, why do you have so much criticism all the time? Like, why are you so mean to the game? Like, it's because I want it to succeed because I like it so much. Oh. Well, in that case, surely you have something positive to say then, right? Just something. First step could not really be considered a step because it was a story progression and save the queen and you only need tomes. That's true. Haunted Mask says, but saying what you like is vulnerable and opens you to criticism. The plot thickens. It's a defense mechanism. Ekodan says, it does genuinely feel to me like if you only ever say negative things about something, you don't actually like the thing. That's what I'd think too. Brandon says, why does it sound you like talking about Xeno? Well, if the shoe fits, right? I don't know actually if he is always like that. Don't mind me baiting for internet drama because I'm bored. Yeah, I see it. It would be really funny. I just can't. I can't be bothered, man. Life's too short. Ooh, it's a boot! Boot! Boot. It got booted. It inherited a boot to the head. Das Boot. Das Boot. I jumped out of my chair out of fear from that boo. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. Kessel says this boss is always scary when seeing it in roulette. Yeah, the first boss is actually... It's really easy, but if your team just doesn't respect it, it might not actually be possible sometimes. Each boss is pretty simple. The first boss, all you have to do is kill the dogs. Because everything the boss does builds this debuff, and when it hits a certain amount of stacks, you can go kaboom, give one stack to everybody, and I think it also builds the debuff, which means it can have this chain reaction where it just goes bop, 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 and then everyone except the tank dies, and then the tank doesn't have the damage to actually kill the boss. This one has this thing where at some point, like, the eggs start to hatch. Killing the eggs makes it angry. But but when it flies up, you need to, I believe you need to kill an egg to get it angry enough to come down. But if you just kill all the eggs, it comes down really angry and very strong. I hope you enjoyed retro gaming. Ow. What do you mean too far away? Yeah, I do know that the Stormblood relics are really have a ridiculous amount of currency that you need, which is part of what makes it so weirdly overwhelming. And I feel like it sort of means, because of the way it's designed, that if you're not interested in Eureka, then you're gonna have a really hard time with the Relic. And I've said before on the channel that the original thing that made me quit Final Fantasy XIV in Stormblood was Eureka. So, never really been super interested. More currencies than Heavensward? I think less different currencies, but just... You have to collect them, you don't just buy them or make them. You have to get them from doing specific tasks and such. Metricon says, as someone who likes Eureka, I think it's better that in Shadowbringers they let you do other things to progress your relic. I agree. And it says, I'm curious why you enjoyed Bozja so much then, because you said you got every relic, so I assume you enjoyed it. I was actively playing in Shadowbringers. I'm not even joking. Bozja came out, and I was like, okay. And then eventually I realized that the best weapons I'll be able to get would be the relic weapons in the final patch. And then I started grinding. I have completed every relic, but I don't really have any other objective completed in Bozja, because I didn't care. I just spammed the Lupin Reginae a crazy, like, metric ton, because it was efficient. So no, not exactly a, but I had so much fun. It was more a, oh, it's probably a good idea. I already started. Oh, surprises here? Oh god. Can I make that? No dual farming like Ham? No, I tried a duel once and immediately determined that I hated it. Like, let me put it like this, Shaq. If a Souls-like game gives a hard time, with the run back, I will already, like, start losing interest. The bosses in, like, the dual bosses in Bozja are, like, in a kind of technicality kind of way, can mean that the run back is, like, 45 minutes. You have one attempt, and one mistake means back to the start. Oh, you didn't pack the correct item. That's a shame. Like, if you could just talk with an NPC and go and give it a go, then I would probably have done it. But you can't, so I haven't. I like a challenge, but I don't like waiting. Thank you, Ilya. That saved us a lot of time. Just wait faster? I feel like I've demonstrated I'm pretty effective at waiting. I'll just go away and then it just works. If I recall correctly, in spite of it all, is like up there. But that's also a key difference. Is that with the Bozja farm, most of the things you needed, you could get once you got the ball rolling. You could get a lot of it from either just grinding mobs in the Bozja Southern Front, or you did the CLL when it spawned. If it spawned. And then once you had done that, you just spammed the Lupin Reginae for the rest. And once you had gotten the ball rolling, you just did that. So I just did that. And that meant that for the most part, I didn't really have that much waiting. It just, I could always progress something. Exactly, Haunted Mask. Also, let's see. I don't blame anyone for cheesing the duels. I feel like that's what it ends up being. Is like, I have kind of talked a little bit about this playing games in a challenging way where you make the challenge too hard can like cause you to play the game in a really degenerate way. For example, let's say that you try to complete a game in like a no-hit run, and you don't want to get hit at all. One method might be, if you can only do melee attacks in the game, is that you just get really good at dodging and such. You might also get really, really defensive. If ranged attacks are an option, you might just only use those. Something like the 1v1 battles in Bozja are kind of like, oh yeah, it's a no-hit run and it's your first try. Because if you get hit once, then you might not get an attempt again for the rest of the day, hypothetically. Maybe, if there's competition for the 1v1 attempt. Which means that it really hurts you into doing it in the easiest possible, or the safest possible way. Thank you, Leo. Amara says, how do you unlock Bozja? Yes, as Metricon says, it's locked behind Evilise. Fear is a sufficient motivator. Yeah. A crater golem. Was Evilise FF12 raid? Jay says, I thought it was tactics. Here's a funny story, guys. You're both correct. Evilise is a world that they use for FF12, Tactics, and Tactics Advance. And Evilise was also the first, like, I would say, Final Fantasy reference stuff where it really stood out to me. Because aside from FF7, I hadn't actually played that many Final Fantasy games. But Tactics Advance, that I have played a lot. So I saw some bosses I recognized. I still don't understand the lore of Ultima with FF14. It gets really convoluted. I'm probably getting something wrong. The Heart of Sabik is a specific rock that is actually supposedly a piece of Ultima, you know, from Evilise. And it has this effect that it can, like, supercharge the desires in a person, I think. And it just so happens to also house the knowledge of how you cast Ultima, I guess. Question mark. But it is also just like a really powerful power source. I must start your bonanza glorp. Punch. Thwack. I guess it's not good to be bud, guys. It just won't appear. We just can't have it. Where does good to be bud actually spawn? There? Yeah, I will just say that I've talked about this thing with Ultima and the Heart of the Beak before, and I seem to recall that there's something in the explanation I just gave that is distinctly wrong, and I don't remember what part of it. Hence why I'm like, I think it's something like this. I think the thing that is wrong is that there's something complicated about the whole supercharges your wants and desires thing that is not inherently the Heart of the Beak, or that incidentally the people that we've seen in possession of Aura Sight, or notably the Heart of the Beak, have a tendency to be a little bit loco already, so who knows? Thank you, Ilya. Well, let's see if the magic works again. Are you ready for that? I will be right back. In the meantime, Manatee restored. Dang it! Guys, I ran out of magic. Yeah, Retro Gaming, the books are so static that the reason why I'm picking the books in a specific order is because I have a whole... I have basically a cheat sheet of do them in this order, then you can do the later quest steps simultaneously. And I have specific live quests handpicked because I know which books are coming as a result of following that order. Like, it's all predetermined. Even funnier is that all the jobs require the same books. There's, like, all this song and dance with fire books and wind books and earth books and whatnot. It's all fake. It's just books. I'm doing which? The live quests? I just have them hidden because, like, they're not needed yet. I actually have a video on, like, as a result of my speedrun stream, I made a video guide on how the relics work, precisely because this can be a little bit complicated. Or confusing. Hey, Maledictio! Maledictio says, it's just the tedium of running from one end to the other of the world to hurry up and wait for fate is my biggest complaint. You see, the advantage I have here, and once again, just want to be really clear that it's something that my buddies here have just decided to do while we're just hanging out, is I have a few friends watching for the fates for me. So when they spawn, I just get a notification. So it makes it easier for me. And then we just hang out. And it's great. Serve says, one of my friends started Final Fantasy XIV recently, and he's always stressed about how he would do and how others will judge him. And I have to keep reminding him, it's a friendly community. And honestly agrees, and it blows his mind coming from League of Legends, which has famously a less friendly community. Oh yeah, if you play badly enough, I have heard that it, like, whether legal or not, doesn't matter, you can get punishments for being reported. Essentially, people basically reporting you for being bad. In League. Very cool. Did that thing just hit me through the floor? Take this! No floor punching! I mean, there's always bad eggs, retro gaming. And the funny thing is, if everyone is bad, you'll just be like, oh, everyone sucks. But if the majority are pretty fine, then you'll have those experiences of, oh, the other day I ran into someone who was a jerk. He pulled half the dungeon, died, and left. I mean, I don't know if I would it's not exactly friendly. I don't know if I would stamp it as unfriendly. I would more classify it as weird. You follow me? You get what I mean? Kind of weird behavior. Oh, thank you, Zero Sugar. Exactly. That clip is someone basically being a jerk when someone is learning. Eat lollipop pizza. Actually, I've had that experience multiple times in Fellowship. While we're on the topic. Also, thank you for the resub, Bobomit. Thank you so much. Of Dungeon Pop, the tank pulls way too much. The healer obviously can't handle it, and the tank also can't. And then they just leave. Like, my task is done. Like, you didn't do anything. And I have no idea what would compel someone to do that in Final Fantasy XIV. But in Fellowship, at least, partly because in Fellowship, the whole game is dungeons, it can come from some level of, like, exasperation of, I want to play the game, but the queue isn't popping fast enough. So I guess I'll play tank, but I'm terrible at tank. And then they do terribly, and then they go, oh, right, and now I remember why I don't play tank, and then they just leave. And you're just like, oh. And it's probably for the best for everyone. If they didn't want it, then I guess it's a solid revelation, and they just hop out. Save everyone the time and the pain. As a dungeon with the crystallite, there's a male Darkhold. Yeah, that one allows you to pull stupidly big now. There is a trick to that. By which I mean, now, there's nothing preventing you from just pulling everything to the boss room, wiping, and because you hit the boss, you can skip the... Like, you can teleport straight to the boss room and skip everything. Now, if the tank pulled a whole bunch and then died on the way and didn't hit the boss, then it is possible that that was not what he was trying to do. Again, I said that's weird behavior. Not necessarily unfriendly, but weird. Most definitely weird. And that's what I mean, retro gaming. For the most part, the people are cool, but we tend to remember the bad ones, especially because there's not that many of them, relatively speaking. So they really stand out. Dang, I didn't get carried. Time to re-queue. Well, let's try that again. Who needs abilities, right, guys? The punch is also so violent sounding. New auto attack meta. Yeah. It's the new Slack Opti, guys. Have you tried it? Oh, wait a minute. There's a lave here. I will say on that, Missile, that I would be pretty surprised if it took that long. The first boss in Out of Serious Heart has a mechanic where there's like a bunch of critters in the area, and the boss will randomly tether to a player. And what you're supposed to, or rather it'll summon orbs that will tether to a player. And you just pass the tether to some of the critters so that it will copy that instead. And while that itself is a pretty unusual mechanic, I will say that I feel like it would eventually click unless you wipe super fast. But I still think it's weird that the mentor didn't say anything after the first wipe. Like, that's actually pretty crazy. I'm guessing, Mistel, that they assumed that you saw that they were doing it correctly. But this is something that I have talked about before. Like, whenever people are like, oh yeah, this mentor's bad, they didn't say a word the whole dungeon, I'm like, yeah, but they did every mechanic exactly perfectly. If you looked at them for 5 seconds, you might have realized that they were actually, if you needed it, teaching you the mechanics practically. But sometimes the mechanics are not super clear, so it might not be enough. But that's exactly what I mean, that some people need different kinds of teaching, and sometimes it's just a bad matchup. But that doesn't mean that the strategy that they employed was bad. You know what I mean? And so not there to hold hands, they're there to, they're guides to help, in my opinion. The important part is the in my opinion bit, because as far as the game is concerned, it leaves a lot of room for interpretation for the mentor. There's a lot of room to do it exactly how you think is best as a mentor. And when a mentor queues, and I've heard people say that's really pedantic before, but when you queue mentor roulette, there's nothing in the mentor roulette that says that you're actually supposed to teach anything. You're literally queuing to fill duties. That is what they're asking of you. For some reason, they're only offering it to mentors, but I guess the logic is that the mentor has been asked to help as needed separately. So by putting mentors in that position, you can do whatever. And yeah, as I've said before, some people have had a mentor at a workplace, for example. And there, the mentor might just be someone who has worked there for several years. And they will just do their work and not interfere with you. If you don't ask, then they won't do anything. They'll just let you do it. And they assume that you'll come running if you need them. They'll just do things right, and then you can just, you know, copy them. Sometimes that's what's needed, and sometimes, like, being super hand-holdy is bad. So them doing it differently than how you like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. It might just be a bad matchup. I'm also, just to be clear, I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth and saying that someone said that it was bad. I'm just highlighting that. That's an interesting example of a case where someone thought that their method worked, and after 3 attempts of doing the silent mentor, it didn't work, and they went, okay guys, back to the drawing board. Let me explain how this works, because I don't think you're getting it. And it is also, again, a game. So just, like, maybe the Sprouts want to figure it out themselves. Then he would have cheated you of the opportunity to do that by just explaining it after one wipe. Maybe you wanted to learn it yourself. Maybe you wanted to do that. No, did anyone ask him to explain it? And that's possible that you actually did ask if anyone knew and he just ignored it. But, unless that happened, I could see the reason why he wouldn't say anything. Like, there's a lot of justifications. Retro Gaming is like you asking if you should explain Remove Extreme or not. The reason why I ask is just in general that my advice goes that a way to avoid people being annoyed by your advice is by asking for permission first. There's also the part that if I just start explaining, then I haven't exactly indicated that I need time to explain it. I just started explaining. Someone might just pull, and when I say, should we talk tactics or just give it a go? I'm basically saying, if you pull, I'm not explaining it. But in a polite way. Because if you go for it, well, then you chose option 2. And that's also, like, as I've said, you've chosen death. When I do that, when people actually say, like, stop and wait for the explanation, most of the time when I finish the explanation, I use food. Just like, if you want me to explain it, I'll also put in the extra effort to help you win. But if you don't need it, then you don't need me to go like an extra few % of effort. I'll just do whatever. Let's not kid ourselves. You probably didn't bring food either. Thank you, Leo. That's also fair, Ham. In a casual duty, if we wipe to a boss that is meant to be beaten in one try, I'm typically already explaining the thing that wiped us before we have fully wiped. Especially if I died early. Like, oh, fantastic, I'm dead, so I can just start explaining. Cool. Hey, Connie! Hope you're doing well. Oh, whoops. Dang it. Because of the latency, I can click the I want to step off the mount, see it not do it, assume that I didn't hop off, click mount again, and queue up mounting again. So that I jump off the mount and then remount because of the latency. I discovered that if you press your keybind to draw a sheath your weapon, you automatically dismount when on the ground. Oh. I hadn't even considered that. Nice. In casual content, I'll usually, if we're wiping, I'll explain the mechanic that wiped us after the one wipe. In extreme content, after one wipe, depending on how well things went, depending on how badly the thing that wiped us, I might explain the thing that wiped us, but I will, like, if it's really bad, I will explain, or I will ask if we should talk tactics. And part of that, by the way, actually also comes down to, let's say, in the video that we have, like, let's say 5 wipes to the same thing over and over and over again, and I point that out, that's a problem. But because no one asked, or like no one requested the clarification, I just didn't say anything, then I kind of feel like a jerk for pointing out, like, yeah, they didn't even know how to do the mechanic. Weird that. It's like, no one explained it. Granted, they didn't figure it out. Let's see, green. But I feel more confident being able to say, well, they didn't do it right, despite me explaining it twice. That, then it's not my fault. I tried. Some will acknowledge, but not actually understand. By the way, pro tip, guys. If you are in hard content in Final Fantasy XIV, possibly in other games too, possibly just in life, it might even help. Unless you know for a fact that you just saying, no, I don't get it, can cause problems. Then just say, no, I don't get it, if you don't get it. Like, and I'm saying that because I have met people in the past who would rather just say, yeah, I got it, sure. Because they would rather just say that so that we can move on. And I don't have to waste my time explaining to them anymore. Because they don't want to be a bother. Meanwhile, by doing that, they're actually more annoying and more of a bother than if they had just said, no, I don't get it, can you explain it again? Even if I might, like, respond in a side, like, exasperated, like, I just spent 5 minutes explaining this, but okay. I would rather have to do that than you going, yeah, I got it, and you don't get it. Because then we will spend 5 or 10 more minutes or more doing it wrong again because you didn't get it. And then I'll have to spend 5 minutes explaining it to you again anyway. Like, the moment that you've acknowledged, I don't actually get what he's saying, we're down 5 more minutes. You're just choosing whether you want to waste some extra time first before we actually move on to explaining it again. So you might as well just admit it if you don't get it. I'll say Canaudo. And there's also the part I also will add, you know, showman. Wow, I know, amazing. That I'll probably be exaggerating my frustration a little bit just for comedic effect. But if you ask me if I'm actually mad, I'll be like, not really. Probably not. Probably don't care. It's just mildly annoying at worst. It starts to get really annoying if someone is like, yeah, I got it, and just keeps failing because they don't actually get it, and they keep not taking the advice and all that. Then it starts to get annoying. Guy has been lying to us. Oh no. The comedian was making a joke for everyone's entertainment. Yeah, disappointed pink lizard noises on raid night. Yeah, exactly. Arnold says, but I mean, it depends. Sometimes asking for help is kind of hard, not as ego or pride thing. I mean, it can be hard because of an ego or pride thing. It can also be hard out of fear. It is a little bit of a vulnerable thing to ask for advice. Like, as I said, if let's say you're in a work situation and you're asked if you understand the thing, you might not want to actually clarify that you don't get it, because who knows, maybe in the moment you'll be like, no, I don't get it, and they're like, oh, okay, we'll just explain it again. But then like a month later it comes back to you like, well, I mean, we have here in our records that you don't actually know how to do thing. You're like, I thought that conversation was confidential. It was not. I don't know. Hopefully there are not many companies that are that bad, but you get my point. Maybe don't let yourself be vulnerable if it turns out that you're not in a position where that's safe to do. No, absolutely, Kanada. I think it's a couple months ago at this point, but I had a Ramuik stream with I'm sure some of you remember the Paladin. The Paladin, where I was like, why is it always Paladins? Where they actually got offended that I was explaining a thing. But the reason I kept explaining it was because they said, I got it, and then got it wrong again. Like, they weren't actually listening. They were more concerned about getting me to shut up than actually, you know, actually listening for a second. Because the problem is that I was going to keep explaining it until they did it right. And them doing it wrong meant that we couldn't clear. And I'm pretty sure that that was one of those cases of like someone that that was too prideful. It was also on Ramuik stream for you. Fantastic. Exactly, Jace. They're also good ones. It's just really funny that the weirdest tanks on Ramuik stream specifically are Paladins. I don't get it. Me no understand. Wow, he survived a hit. I guess she survived a hit. Alla tally hard. Alla tally hard. Tally ho! Tally hard. Ta-da! Mistral says, I wonder if some people could learn... Could you explain it differently as well, since sometimes the explanation you receive isn't quite clicking as it should too? Yeah, that too. The key there, again, is mostly just being able to admit that you don't get it. Hey, Luth! Hope you're doing well. Do 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 do. But it is not easy to admit that you don't get something sometimes. Hey Vibes, hope you're doing well. But on that note, that means you should take it as a lesson that that being able to admit that you're wrong or that you don't get something is a powerful skill that you should be proud to show off. How much longer are you streaming for today? Like at least around 30 minutes, I think. Cat says maybe the reason why it's Paladin is that people who are better at the game don't want to play low-level Paladin. Wow, that, you know, that's an idea. Although from what I've seen, Paladin is perfectly capable at level 50. Liluth says, I haven't done anything hard enough in this game to need an explanation for that yet. Fair enough. Again, the key thing is just to be willing to ask for help or admit you don't get it when you run into a situation like that. See, the interesting thing about it, Kanauda, is that at level 50, Paladin has a pretty heavy advantage in mitigation over the other tanks. Specifically at level 50. They don't really have any good healing. They don't have any healing. But Paladin has Sheltron. And blocking. Warrior has Thrill of Battle. Gunbreaker has Camouflage. Dark Knight has Dark Mind. And it doesn't get any healing until Endwalker. I mean, I was about to say Clemency. Exactly, Canara. That is true. Yeah, Vibes, the conversation is that... Now, I actually don't exactly remember the exact on point for it, how we got into it, but the conversation of just being willing to admit it when you don't understand something, instead of just saying, yeah, I got it, and then not understanding it, because if let's say I spent 5 minutes explaining something to you, right? Sit down and explain a boss mechanic or thing on a job or something. Who cares? And at the end of it, you're sitting there thinking, I didn't get any of that. And I'm like, did you understand? And in your mind, you might be going, I don't actually get it, but I would feel bad asking him to explain it again after he just went through all that. So I'm just gonna say yes. And then, let's say that the thing I just explained is actually crucial for what we're doing right now, and you not getting it is a problem. Like, for instance, if it was a boss mechanic. Like, let's say that you landed on Ramuh Extreme, and I explain the fight. You don't understand how Rolling Thunder works. That might be okay if Rolling Thunder never targets you, or if it targets you, it only ever matches you up with someone that does get it and just solves it for you. But if you are if you do get it and you're matched up with someone else who also didn't get it, then the moment that happens, it's over. And now we will wipe. And we will have wasted 5 minutes. And now I have to explain to you again how Rolling Thunder works anyway. Whereas if you just had said, I don't get it, can you explain it again? Then we would have saved that poll and just explained it again. We would have wasted those first 5 minutes with you not getting it the first time anyway. There's no need to, like, double down. Kat says, I feel like you get over that feeling when you get hit with your first. I just had to spend the entire afternoon undoing the thing you did wrong. Yeah, exactly. But some people are simply not in lines of work where that happens. Hey, make some time. Missile says, what do you do if one person asks for an explanation but two other people say don't explain it? Because this may have happened more than once in Obon when I asked and I just didn't explain. If it's the first pull, then I would say, how about we pull first? Just give it a go first. If we just wiped to it, then the people saying, don't explain it, should have made a pre-made. Too bad. Again, goes back to, if you wanted a blind proc, you should have made a blind proc party. Too bad. That would be my advice. But if someone asks to not explain it on the first pull, then I will say, you know what? I don't actually want to explain. Like, if it's a casual duty, like Obon Monastery is, I know, crazy, right? Then I would go in with the logic that this duty is made to be beaten first try. So if we wipe, we can probably go over it if there's a problem. But there probably isn't. There probably isn't. So we give it a pull and see if it works. Maybe we can give it two. I would also say what Jay says to the M9S mechanic. If you're having a really hard time, the DPS check on the boss should be easy enough that you doing extremely little or straight up no damage in that bit of the fight. Probably, assuming you don't have like a huge amount of other mistakes, probably is totally fine with respect to making the DPS check. But also, congratulations. But also for future reference. I know it's a little weird in a party finder situation, it might look bad, but it's perfectly normal for some players to, like, when you're proccing a mechanic, if it's really hard, to just not attack and just focus on, you know, the mechanic. I'm not singling anyone out. I just know that we have at least one person in our raid team that does this, and I'm saying this because I think it's a good thing, right? Saying it as a compliment. Aradil had a lot of trouble with Replication 2 on M12S Phase 2. I also had trouble with it, but Aradil's solution, from what I could see, was just not attack during it. And from what I could see, it helped massively with learning the mechanics faster and learning the different solutions. And if you're not going for the clear, like if you're not expecting to clear before the Hardened Rage, then you going Turbo Blast doesn't do anything, right? It might help you to gauge how much more damage you need, but it's not gonna do anything. You'd probably be better, like, time's probably better spent actually trying to, like, learn the mechanic. So you might as well. Exactly, Ardal. To be better, reject violence. Dun 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 dun. Violence. Yeah, true. I do believe that JP is a lot more likely to do this. The no attack strat. Do 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 do. Gazzle says it depends from what I've seen, what I've heard. Well, I mean, my point was more, Gazzle, that obviously not everyone and all that. More just that while it is a tactic used in every region for that matter, it just appears that it is a lot more common for JP players to do it. It also reminds me of like some funny like history stuff with Final Fantasy XIV. I feel like we've all like suddenly like culminated in a more similar tactic and approach to things with like most of the West seems to just, you know, we rely a lot on Hector's guides. Shout out to Hector. And things like WTF DIG. And where do I go? And like raid plans and things like that. But in the past, the difference between EU and NA, the way they communicated strategies, was very different. And Nadia, hope you're doing well. The difference between NA and EU was that, and I have explained this in videos in the past. Turns out it's more like a history lesson than something that you need to keep track of. Before we had this like agreement where we basically do it roughly the same way, quote unquote. NA did this thing that I usually refer to as the marker dance, while EU used macro pastes. And what I find really funny about that is that both sides, in a lot of cases, basically scoffed at the other one's solution. Like EU players looking at the marker dance like, that's incredibly inefficient time spending. Like, we have to go around and stand in our positions. Can't we just use a macro paste and call a spot? Well, the NA players said, I'm not reading all that. And the difference is that both of them have their ups and downs. Like a macro paste basically just like is an extremely concentrated like ASCII text with a macro, where you can see all of the specific important positions for a specific slot. Like for instance, ranged 1. You just see ranged 1 is there. They're this in the clock spots. They're here for the light parties. They're here for this and they're here for that. And you just call a spot. Like it's just pasted and you just call a spot. Boom, done. Immediate. Assuming you understand which macro paste you're agreeing to, right? Marker dance is more like you put down the markers in a specific formation and then people stand in their spot. The benefit here is that it's a lot more flexible. You could have very different positions for each mechanic as needed. Thank you, Ilya. And additionally, it leaves a lot less room for someone to have completely misunderstood where their position is, because when we did the marker dance, you demonstrated that we know that your clock spot is southwest, because you stood there when we were marker dancing the clock spots. So you better do that. While with macro paste, there's a lot more room for someone to just straight up have misunderstood where their position is supposed to be. But what's really funny about that, wouldn't you pull the boss during the so-said marker dance? If there isn't a lot of room, then you would do the marker dance in a different duty. For example, if you needed it for UMAD, you could just go into 08N, punch Kefka in the nose, dies immediately. Well, not immediately, but really quickly. And then you can do your marker dance in that room, which is the same room. Or you could do it on Ifrit normal. It's roughly the same shape. And you could also just pull the boss to demonstrate the marker dance. Like, you can survive long enough to test it, right? But you would just go into a different arena if that's what it takes. Hey, Butterfly! Does it matter that Monk's AoE breakpoints depend on how much crit you have? I don't understand what you mean. Both your AoE, you have an auto crit on AoE and single targets. I don't think it really matters. So I guess the answer is no, it doesn't matter. Oh, Breaking Dawn is here. But your Dragon Kick doesn't auto-crit. Doesn't matter. It improves the one that does auto-crit. Basically, Butterfly Spinat, when you're comparing these single target actions, you're supposed to take the average between the builder and the spender. And for this one, you take one builder and two spenders and take the average of that. So 50-50 here. And they're balanced such that they're basically... The AoE button is worth it on 3 targets for the most part at max level. How do you calculate the value of 200 potency crit attack versus 250 potency non-crit attack? Well, first off, well, actually, the way you do that is, and this is the reason why I don't do this very often, Butterfly Spinner. What you do is you figure out how much damage on average the auto crit would do, and how much damage the non-auto crit would do, which would include the average probability that the non-auto critting attack would crit, and then average out. If, say, you have 25% crit chance, you have to assume that 25% of the non-auto-critting attack would crit and take the average of that and take into account. It's very convoluted. It is indeed melt. You might need a whiteboard for that. Oh yeah, but basically what you do is you calculate your crit chance and your crit damage, because crit rating also increases your crit damage. Then you calculate basically the average, like average power gain from that is one way to do it. But because you're a monk, that isn't good enough, actually. What if you throw in a critical direct hit? That is irrelevant. If you're comparing an attack that has auto critical direct hits, then yes, you have to, when you're comparing it to a different attack. Good night, Nox. If you're comparing an attack that doesn't auto direct crit with one that does auto direct crit, then you should, when you're taking the non-auto direct critting one, you should calculate the damage it has on average, taking into account that it can direct it and can crit. Because the way that they balance the attacks that have auto crits and such is that they do less damage because they have more consistent damage. So if you compare the auto crits with, well, they always crit, so we should add that, and then you don't give the attacks that could feasibly crit and don't give them the chance, then you're basically cheating. And that's the reason why those calculations get really convoluted. So say, for instance, if you were comparing Hammer Stamp with Fire and Red, then for Hammer Stamp you have to calculate the damage increase it gets from the auto crit and the auto direct hit, which is more convoluted because the auto direct hit has like an extra multiplier from your direct hit chance, whereas auto crits just use the crit damage. Unless you have a rate buff of some sort that increases it, that would boost it further. And that's also an extra calculation. You have to add that for the Hammer Stamp. But then when you go over to Fire and Red, you do have to account for, well, let's say that 25% of your attacks are direct hits, if that's your direct hit chance. Then you have to add a fourth of a direct hit to the average damage. And then if you, let's say that the average damage you gain from crits is 10% for that same reason, then you have to multiply it by, 1.1. And if that's more than what your Hammer Stamp does, then technically Hammer Stamp is a damage loss. It's not. They have buffed Hammer Stamp, so that is not the case anymore, but it was at one point. I think mixed up crit and direct hit. I don't think I did. Direct hit increases damage of attacks by 25%, but on auto direct hitting attacks, it adds your direct hit chance as an extra boost. And if you have rate buffs that increase your direct hit chance, then that is also included. For crit, the crit stat itself includes crit damage. So auto crits don't double dip. They only get the crit damage that it says. Except for rate buffs. With rate buffs, that crit rate is included. Because otherwise your crit rate boosting buffs would do nothing on auto crits, and we can't have that. Could you imagine a samurai not getting to have devilment? Could you imagine how sad it would be? Correct, Butterfly. Correct. Basically, your question is complicated because the answer is, indeed, the difference is so big that your question about, for instance, Shadow of the Destroyer versus Dragon Kick and Leaping Oppo doesn't matter because they have made sure that Shadow of the Destroyer is a gain on 3. They have made sure of that. For good reason. But if it was closer, then it could matter. For instance, in Endwalker, you may have heard of the Dragon Kick rotation. Like this really cursed meme rotation. Where your filler was just spamming Dragon Kick almost. Almost. I have a short about it. What's really funny is that despite all of those calculations going in Bootshine's favor, I came to the estimate that it actually turned out that at around like 73% crit chance from your gear, Dragon Kick actually was better than Bootshine. Like, with all things included, all of it included, Dragon Kick actually would perform better if you had so much crit rating that you had 73% crit chance and the accompanying crit damage. There's just the detail that that's absolutely impossible. There's no way for you to get that much crit from gear. It's like, I think, at least 4 times more than what is realistically attainable. So it's funny, but it doesn't matter. Beyond the fact that there was a mathematical number where a stupid rotation was actually good. Thank you, guys. Good luck, Shaq. Came out of being a 2-minute replacement DPS in Hawk Mana, entered the duty to the remaining DPS and healer yelling at the tank, and they bickered the whole way through the duty. What happened? Does this mean there is a stupid crit number where Dragon Kick Bootshine is a gain on 4 instead of 3? I just want to remind you, Butterfly, we just rewind a tad here. Your AoE button, at least when it comes to Shadow of the Destroyer, is a gain on 3. So I assume what you meant is a weird, stupid crit number where Boot Kick is a gain on 3, which pushes Shadow of the Destroyer to 4. The answer is no, because of course Shadow of the Destroyer also crits. So it would gain the same benefit. So no, it does not exist. But it would be really funny, right? And the good news is, well, depending. It's good news if you don't want to deal with jank. It's bad news if you think jank is really funny. Is that there isn't really any magic number where something like a really wacky amount of crit or directed suddenly makes some other strategy better. The only time where it has come up in a way where it actually made a meaningful difference in my calculations, aside from the whole hammer stamp thing in 7.1, I believe, which has been fixed, is in the calculation of determining, and you may have heard me mention this before, at level 50 to 59, basically, perfect balance is a damage loss on single target. It's a gain on AoE because Rockbreaker just is the GOAT. It's just that good. But on single target, perfect balance is a damage loss if you don't have Masterful Blitz. And there's also the part that because your AoE at that time doesn't have weird crit synergy shenanigans, it's a lot easier to calculate. But the thing that makes it really complicated is that you have to calculate, first of all, what's actually the best way to spend your perfect balance at level 50. And the difference is so incredibly minuscule that I think actually that my calculations said that at a lot of stat combinations, like specifically crit, Snap Punch and Demolish is the way. Because Steel Peak is kind of mid at that level. But the difference is so incredibly tiny that when you get Forbidden Chakra and it flips to, oh, Bootshine and Dragon Kick is better now, it's still so small that it's a damage loss to use Perfect Balance, because the result is that you get 6 when you use them like chained one after the other. You get 6 of whatever form you want, and then you get 1 GCD without a form. Like, just simply put, that's a 200 potency loss. Like that. At least. And then you're not getting that from Perfect Balance without Masterful Blitz. So for AoE, how do you calculate whether 3 times Shadow of the Destroyer, 3x Rockbreaker is better? Does that also depend on crit chance? No, it doesn't depend on crit chance. Shadow of the Destroyer is always better. However, the way you would calculate it is, again, you have to calculate how much crit damage your Shadow of the Destroyer is going to do. And you have to calculate the average potency of Rockbreaker, accounting for the fact that it could crit. The reason why this matters is the reason why. So for other jobs, what you can do is just calculate the crit damage value for the job. For instance, if you have a 25% chance to do 60% more damage, that is actually a correct number. That would mean on average that the attack will do 15% more damage if it can crit, hypothetically. Good night, Retro Gaming. But specifically for Monk, when you crit, you get a 1/5 of a Forbidden Chakra. Which, depending on what level you are, is worth a specific amount of potency. At max level, it's worth 80. Which means that your crit is worth 15% more damage. Or actually, it's worth 60% more damage and a chakra. So on average, your attack will do 15% more damage and generate a 1/4 of a chakra, which is worth 20 potency. So it becomes really complicated to calculate. But the key difference here with these two is that Shadow of the Destroyer straight up just does more damage. The 50% damage boost puts it at like 180. Then Rockbreaker could crit. But it needs so much help that it's generally not worth it. You just go for Shadow of the Destroyer. Because the guaranteed crits of Shadow of the Destroyer makes it more consistent, typically. Like, there's also the part that Rockbreaker is probably better if it does crit. But when you're, like, trying to use an AoE attack, if you're hitting, like, 8 enemies, there's a much more likely chance that you will just get the average result. Which means that Rockbreaker is not going to get lucky. It's just going to hit the average result. If you have 100% crit chance, does Rockbreaker beat Shadow of the Destroyer? Probably, yes. But 100% crit chance is unattainable. Aside from some weird stuff like a Cold Crescent. Francis, how do I know when is the right time to do motifs as Pictomancer? You learn the fight. If you don't know the fight, then you just choose a point that you feel is nice, and all you have to do is make sure that you've painted the motif before you need it. If you do know the fight, then the best time to do it is when you're not benefiting from a raid buff. And even better is if the boss isn't even attackable. Yes, Leah says, for the most part, full best in slot from the final Savage raid tier will leave you at something in the ballpark of like 27 or 28% crit chance. And again, as I said, you would need so much rating to hit those numbers that there's no way for you to reach them. And because of the way down syncing works, there is no, oh, but what if I was level 70? Like, what if I got synced down? Yeah, nope. Doesn't work that way. Basically, about 28% crit chance innately is just about the cutoff point. That's where you stop. That's also, like, if you actually have an obscene amount of spell speed from, like, getting synced down and, like, absolutely maxed out spell speed like they do for Uwu and things like that, you would land at, like, a GCD of 2.1 as a caster or something. That's as good as it's gonna get. So basically, the numbers where things get so crazy that there are this weirdness, Butterfly, are unattainable. And in the cases where it might be attainable, the difference is big enough that it doesn't matter. But yes, if you could feasibly hit a 100% crit chance, then the main advantage of auto-critting attacks start to fall apart. The problem there is that it's basically impossible to reach that without buffs. And if any amount of the crit chance you're getting comes from buffs, then auto-critting attacks say, thank you, and turn that into an extra damage multiplier. Basically, buffs like Devilment also boost the damage of something like Shadow of the Destroyer. It just boosts in a really convoluted way. If I remember correctly, it's something like... I believe off memory, I have it written down in some videos, but I think it's something like you basically take 20% of your actual crit damage. And that is the amount of damage, like the amount the damage multiplier from the crit rate you get from a raid buff amounts to. But yeah, essentially, what I'm getting at, Butterfly, is that it's an interesting question. And the reason why I'm maybe a bit dismissive of it, sorry about that, is because I basically ran those calculations and found that, no, it doesn't matter. The auto-crit button is better. Super complicated, needs a math degree to do. I don't know if you need a math degree to do it, but it's definitely something that you really need to like pay attention and calculate. And it is a little bit disappointing to go through all that to calculate it, but yeah, as I said, when there was a difference that was small enough that you could maybe do something, the difference was still so small, so big that you needed an unreachable amount of crit to do something with it. And I thought calculating auto crossbow was complicated. It's, well, I mean, there I believe all you have to do is... I actually have calculated that comparison a bunch of times. I believe what you do there is, or what I usually do is, I figure out how much potency is one blazing shot, and then I take the potency of one checkmate or double check. Doesn't really matter. They're identical, and using blazing shot gives you half of each, like half a cast of each, which is essentially the same as a full cast of one. And for auto crossbow, you of course just need the potency, but then you need to like account for multiple targets. And for auto crossbow, it's just, you know, target count times potency. For blazing shot, it's just the potency. And then for something like double check or checkmate, you take its potency and then plus targets -1, because the main target isn't... you've already gotten the potency of the main target. That's the base potency. And then you take a percentage of the potency based on, you know, the damage fall off. And then multiply those two together. I can't remember the exact number. I think it's like, is it 30% damage drop off? So then you would say, you know, the base potency plus parentheses target count minus 1 in parentheses times 0.7 times the base potency. And then you just check each target count. What target counts does auto crossbow win? And then when it actually becomes complicated is that the true answer is auto crossbow's attack radius, or rather attack shape, I guess would be the correct answer, because it's like, it's a cone, is more forgiving than checkmate and double check. So the way it actually works is whether checks and so blazing shot are worth it depends on whether the enemies are closely enough stacked that you can hit enough of them to make them beat auto crossbow. And usually the assumption is if auto crossbow can hit all of them and checks cannot, then the relation is close enough that auto crossbow tends to win, I believe. But yeah, the conversation is usually about attack shape once you hit like 4 targets, I think. But that was actually also a problem with Flamethrower for a long time. Like in Endwalker, when Flamethrower was still fine, it was like, the thing is, it was fine. The problem with Flamethrower wasn't exactly its potency. The reason that people thought it was its potency was because like the potency it lists is really, really low, but it ticks every second. So it's like 2.5 times better than it says it is. No, the real problem was that for some reason they decided to curse Flamethrower with 2/3 of the cone radius of your auto crossbow and your scattergun and things like that. And they just decided, screw you in particular. And yeah, that meant that a lot of the time, even if the numbers, even though the math said, oh, by the way, this is the second time I'm doing Amtapor Keep because there are 2 books at once, Amtapor Keep. Because even though the math might say that Flamethrower did more damage, it was not hitting all of the enemies. Yes, it's a good example is the pull after short in the latest dungeon. Those mobs are too huge for flare, so a machinist's checks won't reach them all anyway. It's a good example. But that's where all the complicated math comes in, is, well, how many targets can you hit? And then with Dawntrail, they first buffed Scattergun and auto crossbow so much that that Flamethrower's average potency per second was equal to the average potency between Scattergun and auto crossbow, which means that the only time where Flamethrower was technically worth using was if you had, like, if you weren't going to have enough heat gauge for another hypercharge, then technically it was better than Scattergun, but then you still needed to hit everything. Then they buffed the cone size, so now that wasn't a problem anymore, and I believe they buffed the potency. Then they nerfed the potency of Scattergun and auto crossbow. Well, actually, they nerfed the potency of Scattergun. I can't remember if they nerfed auto crossbow. I hope they didn't, come to think of it. And then that didn't do anything. People still didn't like Flamethrower. Then they buffed Flamethrower again. And now Flamethrower, because Flamethrower doesn't have any traits that say now Flamethrower does more damage. Flamethrower is insanely cracked at level 70 when you get it. It's like, if I remember my calculations correctly, it's like, if they buff Flamethrower again, it's a gain on 1 at level 70. When you unlock it. Like, if they buff it again, it might actually break some stuff. I just put together what you meant now, Amara. For some reason, it just didn't check in. Amara says, my dailies are cursed today. I'm in Thought and Normal. Thank God for that. With a Gladiator. Oh boy. The good thing is it's Thought and Normal, so no one's gonna notice. Probably. Hey, Decade. Hope you're doing well. So that's wild. I already think Out of War is hilarious. Right? But it is like Flamethrower on single target is 300 potency per GCD. Right? Per 2.5 seconds spent. And I think at level 70 that for your 1-2-3 combo to actually beat that, you kind of have to like go through and go, no. The 1-2-3 combo generates battery gauge and heat gauge. It's better to do your 1-2-3 combo. Trust me. It is better, the resource generation. Like basically you have to justify your 1-2-3 combo in the same way that a Pixelmancer at max level goes, no. Holy and White is not a gain. Because the time you're spending doing Holy and White, you're spending not generating pallet gauge. But the difference is that you're doing it with an AoE button. Like, there's actually a lot of wacky hijinks with Machinist. Like, a few months ago, I did some calculations on Hotshot. You know, the thing that turns into an air anchor? And, well, let's just say that at level 70, because you don't have Automaton Queen, and Hotshot's damage is kind of bad, it's like, I believe my calculations said that whether Hotshot is worth using or not, over just doing more filler combos for more heat gauge, actually came down more so to a conversation about how many rate buffs are you getting for your robot, for your little turret. How much party bonus do you have that puts it at a disadvantage because the robot doesn't benefit from it and things like that. A Quarantuber, hope you're doing well. Says no synced dungeons gives you XP. Unsynced dungeons do not give you XP, no. That's fair enough, Deca. Can you imagine a machine is trying to find spots in level 70 ultimate where they can stand still for 10 full seconds and flamethrower? Oh boy. Oh boy. Alice says, speaking of flamethrower, has actually got me thinking of which actions will be getting cut in evolved mode. Hey, Bipolar Pro, hope you're doing well. It would definitely not surprise me if flamethrower either gets reworked or doesn't make it. Personally, I would prefer rework. Ooh, a key. Tiny key. Hey, Evie. And yet, that is true, Evie. The only thing we can do for now is speculate. We speculate! Could be a lot of things. And I have no idea what to expect. As I've said before, I feel like we don't have enough information to really, really gauge it. I think I talked about that a bit in my video on Evolved mode that was called something like main tank speaking. That while we do have information on 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS, the information we have is so specific that if you imagine like a spider graph, and like those that you sometimes use to like plot out stats or something, then we have like way too few legs filled out on what could be for us to have even an idea of what's possible. And some of those legs are things that are like, well, the reason why we don't have information on it is because we haven't seen any data on a job that is likely to have something like that. Like, for example, if they had shown us Scholar or Machinist or Summoner, jobs that notably have either literally had a pet, like a more active pet, or actively has one live, and then showed that, oh, there isn't a pet, or there is a pet, would be, like, enormous information. Thank you, Ardell! Like, that would be incredible, because if we just got told, oh yeah, Scholar doesn't have a pet anymore, then we would just go, okay, well, if Scholar doesn't have a pet, then no one does. Right? Like, at that point, it's over. But on the other hand, we could have also seen something like, oh, Machinist actually has, like, their turret as, like, an active pet again. And they summon in, like, the Automaton Queen as a cooldown on top of that. Like, that's possible. But as long as we are where we are now, where we don't have the information, we can only speculate. We don't know if pets are allowed in Evercold. We don't know if pets are allowed aboard the Evercold Express. Did they show White Mage pet during the showcase? I mean, I believe they still had Lilybell, but I would say that that one is like, doesn't really count. Because while it works by pet logic, like it has pet stats, it's not a pet. Not like that. It's by technicality a pet, but it's not functionally a pet. Like as I said, Butterfly Spin-Out, I listed Summoner, Scholar, and Machinist and said that some of them used to have pets. Machinist used to just plop down a turret and just hung out with it. Like, just partied with it, and the turret could be ordered to do things. Maybe he says, I have a feeling they will remove the need to summon Eos in 8.0. Reason having an entire button just to summon it is too wasteful when we design around 16 buttons. It's a premium and a waste of buttons just to force Scholar to resummon once it dies. Like we assume 16 buttons. I will just say that on the Dragoon Showcase, they had arm's length on an additional hotbar. So I think the 16 buttons is a range and is assuming that role actions are included too. Let me see here. We should progress this one. Butterfly Spinner says, well, by that logic, and yeah, it's a stretch, but a white mage just plops down their pet and does stuff with it. Let me put it like this, Butterfly Spinner. Gonna ask you real quick. Are you paying attention? Real close attention here. Does this count as a pet? Does that count as a pet in your eyes? No. Good. Let's continue. Now, the key thing you said was you can order it to do stuff. Does this count as a pet? Does this count as a pet? Because, you know, you can order it to do stuff. My unemotional support blood puddle. And my emotional support bubble. Yeah, I know, Evie. I do know that. I'm just saying that it might not be as strict. Butterfly Spinner says that salted earth is more debatable. I can assure you that salted earth is not a pet. Salted earth snapshots your stats when you place it. It does scale real time with debuffs on the target, just like Dotson does. But that's how placed AoEs work. That's also how Asylum works, but they're not pets. Lilybell is, as far as the game is concerned, for some reason, considered a pet. And scales like a pet. It has its own stat line. But it does one thing. You can tell it to do one thing. It's just as much a pet as Astrologian's Earthly Star, which, yes, is also a pet for some reason. But I don't think people would say that Ninja's Bunshin counts as a pet. And by my metric, as I said before, I don't count Automaton Queen really as like an interactive pet, because it's basically like one step removed from it's a burst button, right? It's you click the button and then the queen does a bunch of attacks. It might as well just show a potency. It's just that it does the damage in a weird shape. Living Shadow does that too. Again, they are both pets insofar that they have pet stat lines. But when I talk about pets, I talk about specifically this. And this counts as a pet because you can actually tell it to do things. Such as moving it. You can straight up place it somewhere. That's Malediction. That's what I said like a minute ago. Earthly Star has a pet stat line for some reason. Lilybell also has a pet stat line for some reason. But the question is whether we count that. Yeah, you can move. You can move Kabi. There's a whole menu. In fact, there's a whole pet menu. I've just turned it off because those are the only buttons you need. And yeah, the pet for Summoner is like similar in that technically, you can summon Kabi and you can order it around. But why would you? Like, there's no reason to. And I will say real quick that machinists' robots in the past could not be ordered around like that. But you placed it, it didn't have a cooldown. and it had infinite duration. You just placed it, and then it was just auto-attacking alongside you, and it had effects it could be ordered to do. A little bit like EOS. It's just that unlike EOS, it couldn't move. And you also had two different ones. You had a single target one and an AoE one. Nay, Fire Ferret! But yeah, by that token, while we have cases like Lilybell and Earthly Star that are placed things that are pets, quote unquote, in my eyes, when I say, will Evercold have pets? I'm thinking in the sense of Scholar, where you could order it around and do stuff. I don't think it does. I don't think Summoner's pet will do much. Maybe it'll just stand there. Maybe it'll just be there. Like, actually, Evi's point that maybe they'll just do away with the idea that you can have a summoner that doesn't have their pet summoned, that's just gone. Like, Kabi spawns with you. Like, you just appear and then it just goes whoop out of your book just like that. Because you don't need this. Obviously, you're going to cast this. Obviously, you need your Kabi. It's just there. Is there a point to move Kabi around? For Summoner, the only thing Kabi does is Radiant Aegis. If you click Radiant Aegis and you're actively moving, then sometimes Kabi will be distracted by feeling like they need to run up to you first before doing it. Usually it doesn't, because it doesn't have anything else to do. EOS, or, you know, the Scholar suite of buttons, has the same thing, where if she's distracted running somewhere, she might wait until she reaches that destination before she does the thing that you asked. And for that reason, in small arenas, placing your pet in the middle of it so that you hit everyone with Whispering Dawn, regardless of where they are, is convenient. In a bigger arena, like, as you move around the battlefield, it can be beneficial to, like, reposition your EOS, or your Kabi in this case, to be, like, central in your party, so that it doesn't matter if anyone has moved out. Whispering Dawn will hit anyone anyway, because you've placed your pet in the middle. And it also means, because your pet isn't busy moving around, that it might respond, like, half a second faster than if she was busy moving around. So it's really small stuff. A really random example is in Sastasha, Scholar can, you know how at the start of the dungeon there's this parchment that tells you which coral to click on? Scholar specifically can run down that path and just send, like, the Kabi can only be sent so far, but they can send their Kabi, like, down the way to chase the tank, so that the tank keeps getting healed as you run off to check on the parchment, and then you can catch up with your party. And similarly, in something like Ifrit Extreme, where you, the Scholar, might be forced to go, like, way off because Searing wins, you can just leave your Kabi within range to heal everyone and use Whispering Dawn, and then you're not completely screwed. So there is a point to moving the pet around. It's just that as they have increased the radius and range of things so much, the value inherent in doing that has decreased. But there is a reason to. There is a little bit of reason to. Anyway, how much did we get? We cleared the Book of Skyfall, Book of Skyearth, Book of Skywind, and I left live quests on Book of Skyfall too. And the reason being that now I can use those live quests to, like, pick up more live quests to prepare for the next step. Can you control the Dark Knight pet? No, you cannot. Can you control Automaton Queen? No, you cannot. Can you control Lilybell? That's right. No, you cannot. Earthly Star? Nope. Bunshin? Which is, again, that's kind of the reason why I recognize that technically they're pets, but they don't really count in my book. I feel like the reason why you can move around Kabi as summoner and all that is because if you took that away, can you imagine the amount of people that would cry out in agony over the cuteness lost? Oh right, I forgot to actually deliver the goods. I got so lost in that pet conversation. You can control... Alice, did you pass out on this conversation? We were just talking about the fact that you can only do one thing with Lilybell. No worries, Alice. It was just really funny. It's like, oh yeah, we're back to that again. Anyway, I think we will call it there. Is it true that Summoner's Pet actually had a purpose? Oh yes. As I said earlier, I have a whole video on the history of Summoner called something to the effect of Final Fantasy XIV had a Warlock. Emerald Kabi used to be a ranged DPS that had the ability to extend the duration of your dots that later became basically a magic damage boosting debuff, you know, like Mug now, but only for magic damage. Titan Eggy used to be able to tank. And Ifrit Eggy used to be like a proper melee DPS pet. And he had a buff he could apply to someone that when attacks were reflected by it, like some like thorns-like damage, it applied a physical vuln to the enemy that made them take slightly more physical damage. Again, a little bit like Mug, just for only physical damage. And some of these buttons were something that you actually coordinated and used as needed, you know, like a raid buff. Searing Light, you know, the raid buff Summoner provides, used to be called... Actually, right when Endwalker launched, it was still called Searing Light and originated from Kabi, but due to ghosting issues, I talk about that in the video, I believe. Thank you, Ardell. Which is basically, you click the button and then you summon something else, like Bahamut. Kabi would queue up the action, disappear, and not refund you the cooldown, because it didn't actually get to do it. That's ghosting. Because that was such a problem, they just said screw it and moved the buff to the player and changed the icon to feature yourself instead of the Kabi. But before Endwalker, it was called Ether Pact. Sound familiar? Scholar has Ether Pact. It's just that for Summoner, Ether Pact caused your pet to go... It is still called Searing Light, yes, but before Endwalker, it was called Ether Pact. And Ether Pact ordered your pet to use Devotion, and Devotion increased everyone's damage output, healing output, and reduced damage taken. But it was like a 3-minute cooldown. And again, you could only use it with your small Eggy pet, so when you summoned Bahamut, which you did regularly at that point, it couldn't be used. Just like Radiant Aegis. And yeah, the pet used it to a ton of different things. And then in Shadowbringers, they already kind of like muted it because they made it so that the pet didn't have a health bar, which meant that Titan Eggy couldn't tank anymore. It just could give you a shield, but it was instead of an attack. So you didn't want that, basically, ever. And even if it could tank, because of Stormblood introducing you summoning Bahamut, it was quite inconvenient because whenever you summon Bahamut, your Titan Eggy tank disappeared. And they made Garuda Eggy into just the AoE DPS pet, and Ifrit Eggy into the single target DPS pet. So like, Garuda just did like, you know, damage such that it was a gate on 3. Sound familiar? So like, it was like a gradual thing, where they first made them simpler, removed the tactical choice and then removed it. And part of the reason is that pets have always been like supreme turbo jank in Final Fantasy XIV. Like, the hardest part about Shadowbringer's Summoner was that, yeah, sure, during Phoenix, you could, like, all of your attacks were instant for 20 seconds. Sweet, awesome. One problem, and I actually addressed this in one of my joke videos about changes for jobs that would make them worse. Bahamut and Phoenix would attack every time you attacked. But the way they would do it is that they would queue up an attack to do. But priority went to going over to you. So if you took a step to the left, Phoenix would go, oh, need to get next to my partner here. Oh, right, an attack. Right up, sir. Which meant that if you moved too much, your pet would fall behind on its attack queue, and eventually the time would be up, and it would despawn with like 2 or 3 attacks in queue that just wouldn't happen. So even though you had completely instant attacks during Phoenix for the whole duration, you didn't move a muscle. You just stood still and just shot like a turret, because if you moved, it could be a damage loss. That's how jank pets were. Anyway, enough about that. I could talk all night. But I think we're good for tonight. So if you would like to be part of the Discord community server, there's a link right there in the chat. There you'll find the weekly schedule where you can see what else will come up in the coming days. I usually update it Sunday or Monday. You'll also find the announcement room with links to videos and streams and open them out. If you grab the reminder roll in the role announcement room, you get a notification whenever I do that. As well as the next round around 15 minutes before stream starts, you can catch it right when we go live. And if you'd like to support the channel more directly, you can like over the YouTube side of things, you can follow, you can subscribe, you can become a member, you can super chat, you can cheer. If you have Prime that you haven't used yet, remember, you have Prime, you get 1 freebie sub per month, I believe. And it does help too. If you don't like any of that, there's also the Ko-Fi link. I will post it right there in the chat. It all helps support me and the channel directly, so I can focus on doing stuff like this with all of you without having to worry about algorithms and whatnot. So, thank you so much for the support. But that'll be it from me, so let's see if we can raid somebody. Mara says, turbo jank is one of my favorite turns of phrase. I really like to add turbo as like some sort of intensifying word on things. Let's check in on Regis doing Elden Ring again. Let's check there. Let's get a Reggie! But that will be it from me tonight, so good night, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending where in the world, and hope to see you all very soon. Maybe tomorrow. Bye-bye!